So I wanted to share with you guys today a quick way to use your Tombow liquid glue clear to make an embossed glossy title or word. So all I'm going to use today is this glue, and I've got a few die cut words here I just cut out on my Cameo, and they're of my handwriting, and so we're just going to use these and let them dry. I also have a few little star shapes. Please stop barking. Thank you. Sorry, my little tiny assistants are in here with me today. So what I'm going to do is take the tip off the end off the pin tip side, and we're just going to go slowly and apply a thick, even coat all the way around. So because I'm a lefty, I'm going to start on the far side so I don't have to move my hand across. And all I'm doing is carefully and slowly going and adding a thick, even line of glue over the top. And any place it crosses, I kind of come to a stop and pick it up and then move on. And this will, oopsies, missed a spot. There we go. This glue dries glossy, so it will give it a slightly raised shiny effect when you're done, which is awesome. And anything that you have that's spillage over the side can be trimmed up carefully with a little pair of scissors, which is nice because as careful as you are, sometimes a little spillage happens. And it just takes these a couple of hours to dry. It also kind of depends on what you're doing. My letters took about 2.5 or 3 hours to dry, and I did a little star and it had a thicker middle, and it's taken a little bit longer, probably closer to 4 hours, just because it's a little bit thicker in the center. So we'll get these going. So this is a good project to do before you have to leave your craft room to make dinner for your family, or is the last one before bed and you can just leave it right on your craft mat to come back to the next day. Because I don't know about you all, but I am so inclined to touch things I'm not supposed to when they're wet, to see if they're dry, and I cannot help myself, and I leave a fingerprint, really like a 5-year-old with wet paint sign. So if I can leave it alone, it's a much better option. I'm also resting my pieces on mat. Some people use a craft mat. This is actually a Wilton baking Silpat mat. I think I got it at Target for like $8, and I love it because it's heat proof, which means I can put stuff on here to use with my heat gun or my embossing, and I don't worry about anything melting, and nothing sticks, which is really kind of amazing. So it's just like a little 15 by 10 craft mat and baking mat. Let's see, we'll get this one going too here. Scoot these out of the way. And the silicone mat also keeps it from sticking if you set this down on top of a sheet of paper. Obviously this is glue, and it will glue itself to the page, which is no one's friend. All right, here we go. I'll finish up congrats here. But I love using this technique to just make a simple sentiment. It just seems so much fancier, and it stands out on a flat piece of cardstock or card base that you've made. And I'm a big fan of that. And I'll show you all too my card base here. Once I get around the R. And I do our little flourish, little glue bubble, pop that, here we go. just go right across. So what you're looking for is just a smooth, even line of glue all the way across to the end. And then I also have these little stars I'll do. So this is just a little textured cardstock that I punched out using my Fiskars Star Punch. That's right here, that I've had in my stash for forever. So you just glue, whoop, and the little ones sometimes are hard because they like to wiggle around. But you can really kind of beat it up and it will give it a three-dimensional effect a little bit. I'll scoot him off to the side. Oh, I stuck my finger in him. So, like I said, I recommend gluing and leaving and letting it set for just a hot second. It's much easier than moving wet gluey pieces. So to make my card base, I grabbed 2 of my Tombow Jewel Brush pens. I've got, let's see, this 443 and 173. So a bright kind of teal blue and a bright green. And I just scribbled a little bit on the back of my blending palette. This is the extra large blending palette. I scribbled a little bit here, squirted some water, and just took a sheet of cardstock and flipped it over on top of the wet. So I've got that here, and you can see the colors are really simple, and I added some kosher salt to the top while it was still wet. And what that does is when you brush it off, it gives it a little bit of texture and dimension, so that it's not just the simple watercolor background. You have a little bit extra. So I'm going to brush that off over here. And you can see it's got a little bit of a freckled feel to it, which I really like. So now I can just go straight in and use my sentiment. So I've got one from earlier that I did that's dried. And you can see it's still flat and smooth, but it's real shiny. And it just adds a little bit more dimension to it. So we'll stick that on there. And then this one is the rat's half of my congrats. And you can see there's a little bit of glue kind of overage from where I spilled. So I'm just going to grab my scissors and trim those pieces off, and then we'll glue the whole thing down. Oh, stink. There we go. So just carefully around the edge, just a quick little trim. And because it was on the Silpat, it didn't stick to anything, so I don't worry about my kind of thin font being torn apart when I pull it up. Whoop. A little trim here. A little trim here. And I do recommend using this on a die cut rather than going over words that are already on your page. And the reason is the glue does, if it's got a wide surface, kind of tend to expand, and it makes your letters look a little bit clunky, and it doesn't have the precision of the thin lines, which is kind of what I really like here. It's just where you want it instead of oozing over the edge. All right, so this is all trimmed up, and so what I'm going to do is add a few dots of glue to the back here and glue it down. So just add a little dot all the way around the edge. I love this glue. This glue's pin tip applicator is really narrow, so you do get a really precise glue dot without a ton of spillage. And it also has a good flow, but a slow flow, which means you don't accidentally get those blops of glue that make you look like a first grader when you're doing art, which is really nice too. So we'll bring this in here, put the first one down. And any little spots where there's extra, we'll kind of blend into the background. And then some over here. It is really important to make sure the piece that you're gluing, so this finished piece, is dry from the front. You don't want a wet top and bottom of your paper, or it falls apart and it disintegrates really easy, and you just want to make sure everything is dry before you start adding this backing glue. But again, it only takes just a little bit of time. It's not a terrible wait time. I did my first coat this morning and then took my little guy to preschool and came back and it was dry. Let's see. Let's scoot this down a little bit. Get that on there and just gently press it down. And how cute is that little congratulations card? I love, go down. I love the shine that you get from the letters, contrasting with kind of the textured background. It makes a really simple but subtle look. So give it a try. I'd love to see what you guys think. And don't forget to share your finished products with me. I'd love to see them.